It's just that we have one of these so we can grade the chair at the end of the day.
Yeah. Fair, poor, fair.
Do that tomorrow.
You'll have the overall likelihood.
Welcome
of
back. Yeah, thank you. Welcome back. Mr. Olivares was asking whether or not there was a rating form for the chair of the meeting. You may have heard the last part of that conversation. Welcome back, everybody.
I missed it.
Oh, you missed it.
I missed it.
Yeah, there will be a rating form on the chair.
Oh.
And the person sitting to the right of the chair as well. And the left. Welcome back, everybody. I'm sorry that we're running a bit behind schedule, but I'm sure the public realizes the importance of some of the questions that we're asking up here. Again, I do want to reiterate, we are going to give up to 5 minutes for the programs to present. I would say any of the programs that we've funded in the past and are CDBG veterans, if there's nothing new to add to your RFP, you may want to just let us get into our questions to expedite the process. We'll give you extra points for that. 6 points? No. Anyway, we will catch up. Do not worry, and we'll get to everybody today. So the next program is the Fair Housing Program, sponsored by the Housing Rights Center.
Good morning.
Welcome. And your
Morning.
name, please, for the record.
My name is Frances Espinoza, and I'm the Executive Director of the Housing Rights Center. I'd like to just pass a map around. And you all probably know our program from years past. Every year, at least for the past 10 years that I've been with the agency, we've assisted over 1,000 Glendale residents each year. Our program, our main mission is to investigate claims of housing discrimination. We also counsel well over 1,000 Glendale residents every year on their housing rights, and it can be related to any different type of housing issue. We do education and outreach on housing, fair housing laws and all different sorts of housing laws, the Glendale Just Cause Ordinance, for example. And through that program, we do 2 workshops a year in the city. And then we also do presentations and collaborate with other nonprofits such as Glendale Path Achieve. And then we also provide some legal services by representing our clients in fair housing civil rights litigation. The map I just distributed will give you a sense of where all of our clients are in the city, and it's very diverse. We assist Glendale residents from all over the city, so it's not like our program just focuses on one area. Anywhere you live in the city, if you give us a call and you need assistance, then we'll provide you with any type of housing counseling information, investigate a claim of housing discrimination. So you all know our program, and so rather than go through that, I just wanted to give you 2 quick stories about clients that we've assisted in Glendale. The first one was a client with a physical disability. He lived in an apartment and he needed a ramp to his unit. He requested one on his own. The landlord didn't approve it, so he contacted the Housing Rights Center. We investigated his claim, and with disability claims, the primary thing we do is we send a demand letter to the landlord, and it has all sorts of information about the fair housing laws, because what we found is most times for the disability claims, it's just that the landlord had no idea that the laws existed, and so once we get in there and we can educate on the law, the landlord approves the request, and so our client was able to build a ramp to his unit. Second story, again really quick, was a case of a client who lived with her husband in an apartment building. Apparently the apartment building had no children, which we found out when we did our investigation, because we go on site and we interview other tenants, find out who else lives there. Our client was pregnant, and when they found out that she was pregnant, they gave her a notice to vacate. And so we got involved. Again, we sent a demand letter, has a lot of information about the fair housing laws to educate them on the fact that they can't do that. Just because a child is going to enter the household, they can't evict somebody for that reason. We were able to resolve that, and the family was able to stay.
Very good. Thank you. Questions? Mr. Bagdasarian.
Basically, are some of this information available in the City of Glendale websites and so forth? What are the laws in the form of searches that people can come to? the answers that they're looking for?
The city, we've been working with the city, and I'm not sure if it's on there now, but we've been working with the city to get a link from their site to our website where they'll find all the housing laws, and it's under housing programs. And if it isn't, we're working with all of the cities that we serve right now to get links put on their website so they can connect to our website and get information about the laws.
You made a very good point that most of it had to do with education. Once you did educate the landlords that what the laws were, they had no problem accommodating. It seemed like if that sort of information could easily be made available to.
Yeah, and that's sort of what our job is to provide that for Glendale residents, and we assist landlords as well, educating them. In fact, the 2 workshops that we give every year, one is specifically for tenants and one is specifically for landlords to educate them on the fair housing laws. But if anybody, if you miss the workshop, anybody who calls us, we'll give them access to that same information. That way they'll, being a landlord is a business, so that way they can, learn how to run their business better.
Thank you, Mr. Bagassarian. Mr. Cornell.
Wanted to ask you here, I see you have 2 locations. Where does your staff that administers the housing rights for Glendale, are they in Pasadena or on Virgil?
Glendale residents can get service from both offices. So either office they call, they'll get assistance. And the way that we work our budget is all of our staff are available to assist Glendale residents. And so we bill a percentage of each staff's salary to the program. And that way, when calls come in, they don't have to wait for a specific person to be available. Anyone who answers that call will be able to assist. And so we have an 800 number in our main office in LA, and then they can also call our 626 number in Pasadena to get assistance.
So there's no percentage that is available just for Glendale, so they're all...
Yeah, well, you have access to all 25 of our staff.
Okay. What is the most pressing, I guess, in the last year, during the tough times we're in at this time? What is it? Is it a rent or lack of being able to pay the rent, 3-day notices, or what here?
Well, we kind of have 2 different categories of housing services. So if you look at the discrimination issues, almost half of them are from people who have issues with being discriminated against because they have disabilities. So that's the number 1 for housing discrimination. If you look at the general housing issues, notices and evictions is always up there, and that would be... About 20% of the clients are calling about that. About 20% are calling about rent increases that they've received. We do a lot of counseling on the just cause for eviction ordinance for both landlords and tenants. And so that's a big one as well. For Glendale residents, only about 2% called us with issues of seeking housing. So it's more that people who are in their existing housing are having issues rather than people who are looking for housing.
Thank you, Mr. Cornell. Mr. Olivares.
Thank you. If I recall correctly, you're the only organization that provides fair housing advice, if you will, to Glendale, because the Community Development Department does not provide that service. Is that correct?
That's correct. We get referrals from them as well.
And you're like in your 12th year with CDBG, or can you?
The Housing Rights Center has been with CDBG longer than I've been with the agency, and I've been with the agency about 10 years now. One other thing, too, is, under the HUD regulations, cities who receive CDBG are required to do what's called affirmatively furthering fair housing. And they can do that on their own, but most cities choose to use an organization like ours, the Housing Rights Center. That's why we work with the city on that program.
Okay. Last year you requested 20,000.
Yes.
I think provided 8,700 or so. This year you're asking for 20,000 again. How did you manage with the 8,700 last year?
We always run out of money, but we have other fundraising efforts that we use to fill the gaps. So, for example, our agency as a whole has about $1.5 million budget, and every year we have to raise about $250,000 of that. And so the money that we raise supports all of the different contract cities that we serve, because no one's funding us at the level that it would actually cost to run the program. And we realize that, and we realize that we have to engage in our own fundraising efforts as well, which we do. And so last year, for example, we were able to raise that amount. It primarily comes through attorney's fees that we receive when we represent clients in the fair housing litigation. But we also have what we call fair housing certification trainings for landlords that are very intensive half-day trainings, and we charge a small fee for that. And so all of that helps us make ends meet when cities aren't able to fund us at the level that we need.
Thank you. That was my next question, was if you charge any fees. So, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, it all goes back into the program.
Mr. Sinanian?
Yeah, I think no one sort of came out and praised your services that you provide, but it was, I think you can sense the tone. It's an incredibly important service and really unique, and just as important as, I mean, we're talking about the type of vulnerability that is either addressed or not, and if an organization like this doesn't function, then it won't be addressed, period. My only question would be, how do you manage to provide such massive amount of, service and work on such a low budget? But that's a rhetorical question, so you don't have to answer.
Well, we've tried to run our program as efficiently as possible. So, for example, through our hotline, we don't require people to come to our office to get service. They can get it over the phone. We even have, if you look at our website, we have a way that you can ask a question via email, and we'll get back to you within 24 hours. So all of those things help us maximize the number of people we can help in a day. And since I've been with the agency for 10 years, we've always assisted far more than what our goals are in the contract, because our goals are set at about 1,000. We've always surpassed that. For example, last year we served 1,367 Glendale residents.
Fantastic program. Thank you, Mr. Sinanian, and thank you very much. I have no questions, so all my questions have been answered. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Duran.
I have a quick update on the question of whether there is a link from the city's webpage to fair housing services.
Yes.
And there is.
There is.
If you type in fair housing or tenant landlord questions in the search engine bar, you will get connected to the Fair Housing Rights Center.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay. Our next program is the Clinical Group Counseling Program, sponsored by CASPS. And again, as a reminder, you'll have up to 5 minutes to present your program, and then roughly 2 minutes per committee member for questions.
Okay.
Can you please state your name for the record? Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Arsina Hovanesian with CASP, and I'd like to introduce Mrs. Laura Toyan, a board member and also the grant writer for the application, and Ms. Lisa Sondergaard, who is the assistant principal at Keppel Elementary School in Glendale. Can you hear me? Oh, okay. All right, thank you. Just like you requested, I'm going to keep the introduction to a short minimum. The committee is already aware of our program. We've been with you for a few years now. The Intervention Prevention Clinical Group Counseling Program has been in existence since 2000, has been funded by CDBG for the last 4 years at Columbus Elementary School, and for the first year at Keppel Elementary School. And I just wanted to stress the importance of the title of this program, Intervention Prevention Clinical Group Counseling. The idea is to intervene at an early age before the problems become very big, to intervene and to prevent future antisocial behavior, so that the children don't reach middle school and high school levels, and where it gets much harder to help them. That is the premise of the program. We're hoping that we will be able to expand the program to a third school this year, Muir Elementary. They've been included in our application since our first year we applied, and we hope to expand there as well. And I guess we're ready for questions.
Wonderful. Thank you. We'll start with Mr. Sinanian.
No questions, really a comment of I'm very familiar with the program. I've visited your site, I think, several times, and what a wonderful place. And I see the youth and sort of, remember my own experiences as an immigrant coming in, and such things were not in existence back then, or at least they weren't as available as they are now. And just the vibe is so positive, and you get such a good feeling knowing that the youth are really being kept out of the bad things and being directed in a good direction. So that's it. That's my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Sinanian. Mr. Olivares?
Yeah, I echo that too. I particularly like to see children programs because I think we need to hit them early on so we don't have problems later. And I have to tell you, you're definitely persistent. You keep asking for $43,760. And we'll keep reacting to that. But, now, I'll ask the same question I asked last time, the last group, with the reduction of last year. How did you manage?
I'd like to make a point about that. Last year, we did get a little more funding than the previous years, and the idea was to expand to a second school. But what wasn't taken into consideration is how much it would cost to cover the program for the full 3 sessions in each school. So even though we were given a little more money, it's hard for us to do a complete 2 programs in each school. Therefore, we had to leverage basically all of the administrative costs for the program, and all the money is really spent on just the kids.
How many kids did you serve last year? You serve currently, I guess, is the question.
Currently, it's about 45 kids, and last year we served, well, at one school. We were only at one school site, and we were serving little over 30 kids, 33, I think.
Okay,
So
thank you.
now, and every day we get more and more children into the program, and I'd like Ms. Sondergaard and Mrs. Atoyan to talk about that as well whenever we get a chance.
I'll save that as a question.
Okay.
Mr. Cornell?
I'll pass. No questions.
Mr. Bagdasarian?
Well, we visited your program, and when we talk to the individuals, schools, we were very impressed with what you do for the kids, and you're right that prevention is very important at the early age. So nothing to say other than it's wonderful work that you're doing, and the fact that I believe you want to go to 3 schools now. Is that the plan? So one school you could not do the 2. Wonder.
One school at a time would be great.
It's a fantastic program, and some people would suggest, well, group counseling, how necessary is that in this current economy? I think it's extremely necessary. You're offering something. Don't worry about that. You're offering something that no other program offers that I've seen, and it's extremely unique. The one thing I noticed is how requested and praised it is by school principals. It's amazing the letters that I read of the school principals just saying, "Oh my goodness, it's such an important program." Who do you have here with you today?
Ms. Sondergaard, she's the assistant principal at Keppel Elementary School, and I'd like her to say a few
Sure.
words if possible.
Sure.
Thanks for having us here. These in schools, there are no resources for counseling other than something wonderful like this comes along, and it is so important because we have children who have issues with control, behavior, motivation, endless things that we deal with every day, and it's frustrating when you talk to a parent and you don't have any resources to offer them that don't cost large amounts of money to the parent themselves. And when we have this opportunity to provide children with this support so that they can ultimately learn to the best of their ability, that's really the main issue. When they're having behavioral issues, they can't learn in their classroom. So when we have these opportunities to help children to learn strategies about how to get along with others, how to be in an environment and do their very best at every moment, it's just the best possible thing we can have. We have school psychologists, but school psychologists are there for special education, for testing, and they don't provide counseling services. And lots of times people think, well, you have a school psychologist, but that's not what our school psychologist is there for. And so she's not able to provide those services. And it makes a huge difference to these kids, huge. And I've talked to several of the kids who participate in the program, and they absolutely love it. And I see a difference in them when they come to see me. They're not coming to see me now because they're in trouble anymore. I'm the main disciplinarian in the school, and they're coming to see me because they're doing a good job. And that's a really great thing. I see a huge difference in our kids and how they feel about themselves. And knowing that once they get to Toll and to Hoover, it becomes much more difficult for them because there's all kinds of other things going on. So if we can get them to have those strategies now, they're going to have a much better future.
Thank
That's
you.
what we hope.
Thank you so much for coming.
This is a turn if she could please.
Sure.
I'd like to reiterate that our program is for everyone. It's not limited to Armenians, and in fact, the majority of the kids we serve are not Armenian. Just like Jewish Family Service, just like Catholic Charities, we serve everyone. Now, in terms of the effectiveness of the program, I think there's a lot of testimony as to that, so I won't go into that. But in terms of the cost effectiveness of the program, I'd like to sort of give you a nutshell of information about that. We always are asked about the hourly rate of the psychologists. The gross rate is $133 per hour. If you divide $133 by 15 students, which is the number served in an hour, it comes to $8.86 per hour. I don't know that you can find psychological services for that rate ever. And it costs $500 a year to serve a child. Again, no parent could possibly find that kind of service and the kind of risk mitigation we provide for that kind of cost. In terms of the cost to society, you can just figure that out. And remember, in Glendale, 20% of all arrests are juvenile offenses, and 26% of all suspensions involve elementary school students. So it behooves us to nip all these problems in the bud so that we could all have a much better future.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. $8.67 an hour.
86 cents. $8.86.
$8.86?
Per hour. For the kind of service you can't find any place else.
I have difficult times finding cashiers for my restaurants
kidding, yeah.
for $8.86 an hour.
That's more than minimum wage, is it?
Slightly.
Yes.
Slightly. Okay, thank you. The next group that we have, the program is the CDBG Loaves and Fishes, sponsored by Catholic Charities. You'll have up to 5 minutes for your presentation, and then roughly 2 minutes per committee member for questions.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. I'm Mohit Khan. I'm the Regional Director for Catholic Charities. This program, Loaves and Fishes, Homeless Prevention and Loaves and Fishes, is one of the premier and primary poverty programs in the city of Glendale. Most of you are very familiar with the program. I see one new face that I'm not familiar with. I've been with Catholic Charities now going on about 29 years. In 1984, we began to see a shift, and at that time we opened our first Loaves and Fishes that was on Orange Street, that is now part of Americana. And I came under a lot of criticism. People said, why are you opening a Loaves and Fishes? And things have changed. And part of the program, Loaves and Fishes itself is a poverty program, and then part of it is a homeless prevention program. With me, Seta Kamal, with me are the project coordinator, program coordinator, and case manager, Laura Young, and Seta Kapelian is our assistant. Last year we asked both for positions, were not funded, but some within Catholic Charities we were able to continue to keep Seta on board because we do have a fairly large Armenian population, and that is much needed. And in our request this year, we have asked for additional funding, again hoping that the position for SETA will be fulfilled. The need has grown, obviously, in the last 4 or 5 months. I've been in this country about 40 plus years, and this is the worst I have experienced. And every day you get, woefully sad stories. People being evicted, people need hungry. We have seen 35 to 40% increase, and even in some of my other centers, we've seen up to 60% increase in requests for food and basic needs. So basically, we are very appreciative of the support and relationship we have with the City of Glendale. We have been part of the continuum of care for many, many years, and we are very grateful for the support, and hope you will consider our request positively and give us the additional funds, because this is a very, very critical time, and so people are really hurting. So if you have any question about the program, we'll be glad to answer.
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Olivares.
Thank you. Actually, I was pretty impressed when the program before the holidays that took place at the over in Colorado. My daughter participated in that, and I was just amazed at what's happening out there with homeless people. And also visiting your place, I saw firsthand what you're dealing with. So my question to you is, because this funding is for next year, if you're seeing an increase of 35% currently, how are you handling that with your current funding?
So, I just don't want to be facetious, but I saw an article which said that the charitable organization need a bailout too, and we do. But one of the things which we are really addressing that issue. In fact, after this afternoon, we have commissioned a consultant for my entire region to look at address that issue. How are we? Who's going to pay for the services, where the money is going to come from. Fortunately for us, we are part of a large organization. As you will see, that your funding does not cover. Fortunately, I have the backing of Catholic Charities that even when we do run into deficit, and this program is running in deficit, somehow the Catholic Charities is able to cover, even though it's not very pleasant to go before CFO every year. But that is the advantage of being part of Catholic Charities.
Thank you.
Mr. Sinanian?
Just a comment, no questions. I don't know if the service that they provided was always important, but under these circumstances, I think the frontline nature of what you do is beyond doubt. So, with that in mind.
Thank you, Mr. Sinanian. Mr. Bagdasarian.
I don't have any questions. What you do is wonderful, and wish you the very best, and hopefully there'll be some help that will come to us from government.
Thank you, Mr. Cornell.
I like the job you're doing, and I can imagine during these tough economic times we're in right now that your caseload has probably gone through the roof, yet you have limited funds. Are you getting any additional support from the Archdiocese as well during these times?
We are not subsidized. We've never been Catholic Charities of Los Angeles. Has not been subsidized by for the Archdiocese, but we do get the support from diocese because the center actually is owned, with the support from the city also. But the property actually is owned by the Archdiocese, and they give it to us for free. So there is in-kind support for us a lot.
Are you working with other organizations such as the Homeless Coalition Group?
Yeah,
so
maybe
on?
Laura can address. Yes, Shelter Partnership.
Yes.
Our parishes, because we also part of this program, and we get ESG funding, and working with other organizations, Laura is able to supplement the funds that we get from the city, and so yes, that is one of the has been one of our strengths.
it's a fantastic program. I've visited twice in the past year, and I had an opportunity to see firsthand and discuss some of the difficulties. What you're doing is something that's extremely necessary, and for me is of the utmost priority. So I want to thank you for your service to the community.
Mr. Chair, that in your deliberation, you do one of the top priority for United Way this year also has been to basic needs, because there is a tremendous need for the basic needs, as the living and the food. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next program is the Temporary Worker Center, also sponsored by Catholic Charities. And again, you'll have 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes to make a presentation, and roughly 2 minutes per committee member for questions.
Thank
Welcome.
you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, it's been a long time since we've seen you.
Again, I'm Mohit Khan with Catholic Charities. This is again my privilege to come before you and ask for your help. Day Labor Center has been a partnership between the city and the Glendale PD. A few years back, we were invited, Catholic Charities were invited to take over or run the Day Labor Center because there was a huge problem. And the city and the police department felt that the Catholic Charities was the appropriate agency to deal with that kind of issue. It was a hot potato, and I think it still is kind of a hot issue. And they felt that we had little broad shoulders, we could take that on. But one of the conditions which we talked about with the city and the police department was that it has to be a full partnership. It worked beautifully. We worked before we even started the police department through the community policing. We went and observed several other day labor centers, and based on our own needs and looking at what the strengths and weaknesses of other centers were, then we came up with the design. And I must say that it still is a very beautiful program design. A lot of cities from other communities came and has looked at at the program. City was recognized nationally for its effort, how well this program is run. A lot of people have come and asked me to operate some other centers, but I always put a condition that the city has to be part of it, and the police department has to be part of it. Sometimes the most communities cannot live up to that. But just to give you a little background, that a couple of years ago, City of Burbank came forward and asked us to operate, and it's also the center is also working very beautifully, so much so that they were quite impressed with us that they gave us a 5-year, program. So with me is Officer Blanco and Juan Rodriguez, who coordinate the programs. We will be glad to answer any question that you have.
Okay, Mr. Cornell, we get to start with you today.
Okay. Question is the same as I proposed to you last year, what concerns me as a member here, and that is a lawsuit. What is the status of that lawsuit as of today?
Good morning, gentlemen. Officer Rosano with the Glendale Police Department. I work for the community-oriented policing. As far as I am aware, that lawsuit has been settled, and in order to do that, we had to amend the ordinance that the city had put forward. So there were a few changes made to it, in which we've already implemented or began to train our officers in. So as far as that is concerned, I can tell you that you can be at peace.
So it has been signed off by the city and by the city attorney?
Yes, it has, sir.
Can you expand on what the changes were?
Yes.
What percentage of the Glendale residents are being able to get these jobs when they come in? Because I've been down there on occasion, not regularly, but on occasion. And I see you, and I see your colleagues there. I don't see too many of the Home Depot security personnel, which I think primary, they should be first on the line, and you as a backup. But I'm more concerned, since funding is going to be for Glendale, seeing that Glendale residents have first priority here. And can you give me an idea, a percentage basis for Glendale compared to, say, anyone comes across the border from LA?
Definitely, sir. We have approximately 10% of Glendale residents participating in the Skilled Worker Center. Something also very important to keep in mind is that day laborers or skilled workers that participate in this center, some of them are not residents of Glendale, but they do their part working in Glendale. For example, workers volunteer their time on a weekly basis to pick up trash on a 2-block radius around the Whole Foods Center on Glendale Avenue. They also volunteer at Catholic Charities doing odd jobs. Some of them have been able to obtain permanent work as a result of participating in this center, and thus have been able to become residents of Glendale.
I'd like to see, I know you have a good program there because I've been down there. It's organized well. I see you have a supervisor and assistants there. But I see more people wander off to the Home Depot lot, and as a result get submerged. The driver can't even move to the extent. I'd like to see the organization perhaps work more with the Home Depot people and get more of those people back to the center where they can be utilized, processed, given a number, having an opportunity, so that the homeowner that's coming or needs the employment doesn't get besieged and is overwhelmed before he can even get to the lot.
I agree with you, sir. For that exact reason, back in November, the Community-Oriented Policing Department, along with Mr. Moises Carrillo and Catholic Charities and Juan Rodriguez, we put on 2 types of training for these day laborers, which are the ones that are not participating in the Skilled Worker Center, which at this point, due to the economic crisis, is about 80 people on a daily average, standing on San Fernando Road and the 700 block of West Harvard. Now, the key word here is partnership. And I think in order to be able to attain that goal that you have mentioned, that is our goal as well, to get as many day laborers over to the Skilled Worker Center. So the key word is partnership, but another key word is how will we be able to beautify this center so that it could be more attractive. And because of that, that's why we're here, because failure to continue to sponsor this program would only allow the day laborers to begin to think, well, maybe it isn't being effective. Maybe we do have a better chance to obtain work standing on the street as opposed to being part of an organized team.
I'm glad to hear that and hope you can continue to work on that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Cornell. Mr. Olivares.
Yeah, I've always supported this program since the first time it came to CDBG, and I still feel the same way. But I wanted you to discuss maybe some of the changes to the ordinance that came out as a result of the lawsuit, and then I also had a question. I'm also familiar with the one in Burbank. The one in Burbank doesn't seem to have the issue of laborers on the streets. They all seem to truly congregate in the center, and it's a very well-designed center in conjunction with the Home Depot. What's preventing that from happening on San Fernando?
The main difference is that the Day Laborer Center in Burbank is actually within Home Depot premises. That is the main difference. Now, this center in Glendale is not on Home Depot premises, and we have attempted to work with them on various occasions, stating the fact that it's important for them to have security on board in order for these day laborers to become part of the Skilled Worker Center. Now, as a police department, I believe that we have definitely done our job in order to ask these day laborers to become part of this center. There is a trespass letter on file, which is probably the time that Mr. Cornell sees myself and my coworkers implementing the trespass letter. But without a partnership from the Home Depot, we will not be able to obtain or attain that goal that we have set forth.
Why is Home Depot not participating if they did it on the other one?
Well, there are various reasons which the region has given us. We are still working on that, so it's not something that we have put in the back of our minds and just let it be. We continue to work with that, and recently there have been changes from management, so we hope that that can be an improvement into reaching this.
Thank you.
If I may add one thing,
Sure.
is that the location of this center, the bus stops there, if I understand, and the Burbank Center is a little off, on a side street. So that is also a deterrence.
Well, the Burbank Center is definitely much more convenient for somebody looking for a laborer than San Fernando Road, where you're trying to negotiate that right turn and coming out.
But I was addressing the issue of people hanging outside.
Sure.
That is not as conducive to,
Right.
as attractive, and especially if I'm told that the bus just stops there.
Thank you.
Mr. Sinanian?
No questions.
Mr. Bagdasarian? I have some questions. I mean, my main question, given some of the things that you've said, is what the efficacy of the center is if there are 80 some odd laborers standing in Home Depot's parking lot and Home Depot isn't participating. Can you address that? How effective is it if you're not getting those laborers into the center?
Well, at the moment, I think we have about at least 80 other workers participating in the Skilled Day Labor Center. So that, to us, and I think for the citizens of Glendale, means 80 people that are out of the streets, as opposed to 160 people congregating on the sidewalks.
And you mentioned in answering another question that you said 10% of the workers are Glendale citizens?
Yes.
Mr. Duran, what's the requirement, the HUD requirement, in terms of how many Glendale citizens need to be served by a program if it's going to be considered as, for the Glendale CDBG?
Yes, Chairman Marion, one of the criteria for CDBG funding from the City of Glendale is that 60% of the persons you served are Glendale residents. This is a criteria that the committee and ultimately City Council will have to overcome in order to resume CDBG funding for this program. It's possible that you and the City Council could determine that this program, because of its very nature, would still be benefiting the greater community of Glendale as a public health and safety issue, while still benefiting low-income persons, and overlook the fact that the majority at this particular time may not be Glendale residents. Very similar to the regionalism of the whole homeless issue, where you can debate whether more than half the persons are always Glendale residents. So it would depend on you and the City Council to determine that this is one case where that local criteria could be, where we could exercise some flexibility.
Mr. Olivares?
Yes. Last year, I know we didn't fund the program, but the council did fund it.
Correct.
A separate manner.
Correct.
Correct. Yeah.
If I may add something that, in your deliberation also, and this, also the council and the city has to look at it, that it is regardless whether they live here or not, it's still a problem. It's still an issue, people congregating. And when we first started this center, I believe more than 60% people lived here, but because of the housing cost and the transient nature of the population, that kind of began to shift.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions. Thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
and presenting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Give a moment for fellow committee members to fill out their forms. Okay, we're just about back on schedule. Our next program is the Bookmobile program, sponsored by the Glendale Public Library. You'll have up to 5 minutes for your presentation and roughly 2 minutes per committee member for questions.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Mindy Lieberman. I'm at the Pacific Park branch and the Bookmobile. We've been serving Cerritos for many years. Thanks to you, we've been able to stop at Cerritos School for an extended period of time, once a week, and we've been able to buy the books that the children want to read with your funding. So we appreciate that very much. And with reading scores as they are at the school, we all know that reading is very important, and we hope that we can continue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, that's perfect. Questions? We'll start with Mr. Bagdasarian.
This is a very good program. I cannot imagine anything else that for $14,000 you can provide library books to the students in a school. It's one day a week, but they can come in, check in, check out the books. So it's a wonderful program. I think we funded it last year. We should just continue as much as possible.
Thank you.
Mr. Cornell.
Yeah. I basically don't have just a comment, maybe. Has, during these times we're in right now, has the demand for your services increased to that extent?
The libraries generally do show increased circulation at times like this. People are, coming to the libraries for all sorts of information and books that they can't buy. We're finding at the school that some of the children have lost their cards, and we have been charging $3 replacement fee. We've lowered that to $1 now, hoping that more children and more families can afford to get replacement cards and start using the libraries again.
I noticed here that at Cerritos that you're only open 3 hours. Is that enough time to be able to handle and service the students there at Cerritos?
It does seem to be. The other schools that we visit were only at 3/4 an hour or an hour, so 3 hours does allow most of the teachers to bring their students out and gives it a little bit of time for community time after school as well.
I'm familiar with the work, having been here, hearing you and your organization, and also occasionally taking in the Friends of the Library, seeing what you're doing. So I have to commend you and your staff for the commendable job that you're doing, and keep it in that direction.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cornell. Mr. Olivares.
Just a comment. I mean, I think this is one of those programs that really gives us a lot of bang for the buck, and I'm just going to continue supporting it. How many years have you been getting CDBG funding?
I got that.
It's been a few.
At least 5.
It's been a lot. Oh, more than that. It's been a lot.
That's okay. You don't need to give me a number.
Okay.
I know. The point being that we've supported you for a long, long time.
You have.
Thank you.
Mr. Sinanian.
A great program. I have a quick question. Program, one of the functions it has is to help people borrow materials for homework, reference, and recreational reading in English, Spanish, and other languages. And I assume that includes Armenian.
Yes, it does.
Because about 40% of the population is Armenian. There's I don't know if this is a fact or it's just a rumor out there that the Glendale Library is going to cut the Armenian section. Does that mean that, with respect to Armenian materials, this service is not going to be provided anymore?
Oh, that's the first I'm hearing of that rumor.
That's fine.
No, Armenian is clearly a high priority for the library.
I'm glad to hear.
Both programming and collection.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
This is one of the more cost-efficient programs as far as the CDBG is concerned. Just given what you're asking for, and the total program cost is just under $27,000, and the number of people proposed to be served is 2,500. So you're talking about $10 a person, which is extremely cost-effective. I do have a question regarding the number of visits over the past 5 years, and I was looking at this chart that was provided in the funding proposal packet, and it shows that over the past 5 years, the number of patron visits has steadily decreased. What's the explanation for that?
I did visit the school last week. I spoke to a faculty meeting, and some of the teachers did say that since a lot of children have lost their cards, they're not coming out. So we're working with them to provide replacement cards. And last Tuesday, a lot more children did come out than had been coming out. So we are working on that.
So you fully expect that that the number of patron visits, that you'll meet that expectation of 2,500?
I'm hoping so. If not, I expect we'll be close.
Okay. And one more question. Where do you make up your funding shortfall, the deficit?
We're otherwise funded by the city.
By the city. Okay, very good. Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Hey, just a moment to fill out your forms if you haven't done so already. Our next program is a youth employment program, and the sponsor is the Glendale Youth Alliance. Come on up. You are the next contestant on...
Price is right.
Yeah.
Contestant?
Yeah, right? Oh, I'm sorry, applicant?
Good morning. My name is Karina Gregorian. I'm the program supervisor for the Glendale Youth Alliance. As many of you know, the Glendale Youth Alliance is a nonprofit organization that operates within the city of Glendale. We're located at the Verdugo Job Center, and we serve about 450 youth annually within 6 different programs. The youth age from the age range goes between the ages of 14 to 21. And we offer training. We have mentored case management services as well as hands-on work experience. All the kids in the program get paid for the hours that they work. I also asked Aline Kaimaltian to join me today, so if you have any questions, she's the participant of the program currently.
Fantastic. Okay, questions. Let's start off with Mr. Sinanian.
No questions. Great program.
Thank you.
No questions. Mr. Olivares.
Yeah, just a quick one. Have you seen an increase in demand recently?
Definitely. We have a lot more youth coming in, and they're requesting a lot more supportive services. They lack just the basic needs. We have teenagers that need diapers for their kids and just the food and the basic necessities. We're seeing a demand for it more than ever before.
I know that CDBG, we've always also, again, funded some amount of what you request. And are you getting other help from the city in a different manner?
We do get general fund monies, and we have other grants that we try to leverage and try to be as efficient as we possibly can.
Okay. And do you turn anybody away?
Yes.
You do?
We turn away hundreds of kids every year
Really?
within the 6 programs that we have.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Cornell.
We do. A lot of the youth that do graduate from the program always keep in touch. Now, the program has been in existence for about 16 years. So now we're seeing some of the early graduates come back and hire the kids and give them guidance, participate in our trainings and career day, mock interviews. So we're seeing it more and more now than before. But because we're fairly new, we haven't been around for 50 years, but we're getting there. As the alumni are getting older, they're giving more back to the organization.
I can imagine your caseload has increased during these tough economic times with the family and so on, and more of the teenagers required to be able to give a helping hand to the family then.
Right.
So,
yes, exactly.
pretty much. I'm familiar with the work you do. I've been down there on a site tour with the chairman, so continue the excellent work. and appreciate your stopping by and coming to see us.
Thank you, and I appreciate your attendance at our luncheon as well.
Mr. Bagdasarian.
Nice. It's nice that you have volunteers come back and help you. They start working, and it's sad to hear that you actually turn kids away. I wish that wasn't the situation. I know in this economy, it's a very needy program. I want to talk about a couple of things. One is the degree of using tools like e-learning or websites and so forth to help assist you with some of the, your offerings. The other, and I probably is the wrong thing to say, is I look at some of the salaries, like 50% of the salary is $43,000 for a program supervisor, or 75. Are these things that you can, I guess these are experienced people, these are existing salaried, or these are new positions? Can you look for someone at a lower salary? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
In regards to the salaries, all the staff do have a lot of experience working with youth, and majority of the staff have been with the organization for many years, over 5 years. The salary that's posted in the budget includes their fringe benefits, which is almost 30% currently. So it's the amount that's listed there isn't just the base salary, it's the salary plus fringe benefits. But in regards to the training, a lot of the trainings we do are based on employment skills and life skills, and it's classroom style. Because of the amount of kids we serve, we can't do one-on-one computer trainings. So we're limited on space and equipment to do that kind of training. But we try to provide as much as classroom-style training.
Sometimes when you go to websites like Monster or Career Builder, they actually have very good multimedia, pieces on how to write your resume, how to apply for jobs. And I'm just wondering if referring some of the kids to those may help in, freeing up some of the case managers to handle more of the kids instead of turning.
Sure, we do. We do refer a lot of the kids to internet websites for guidance. But if they're enrolled in the program, we do hold trainings and we go through it step by step, how to fill out an application, how to do the resume, and prepare them for the interview process.
Thank you, Mr. Bagdasarian. I have some questions.
Yes.
Well, before I get to my questions, first of all, fantastic program. I love you guys. It's always fun to come see exactly, how motivated the young workers are, and thank you for coming today. And the experience, that they keep talking about so glowingly. And some of the, former workers are now turning into team leaders or supervisors. That's fantastic. So I do commend your program, and I think it's a vital program. It's a necessary program. I do have just some budgetary questions. I see that in the past as well, and this year, your actual cost for the youth workers is already covered. You're getting that from the general fund, right?
Actually, we're leveraging several funding sources to cover the youth salaries.
You have several funding sources,
Yes.
but you're not asking for CDBG money for the youth salaries.
Not for the youth salaries. We're asking for staff costs.
So yeah, and I see that it's mainly the program supervisor, the program coordinator, and the program specialist.
Yes.
And it's roughly a combination of almost $180,000 in salary. The question I have is, what's the current ratio of a supervisor or a team leader? What's the current ratio of that person to the number of youth employees that you have?
Well, it depends on the program. Each case manager can have up to 50 youth participants in their caseload, whereas a team leader can work up to 10, 15 kids in one group, but that's on a work site doing brush clearance. So it completely varies program to program, and the components of the program vary as well. So depending on the program, the caseload actually changes.
I mean, what does it do in terms of the efficiency of running your program? Since the youth salaries are covered, I mean, you're talking, that's probably the biggest part of the
Right.
biggest part of your budgets. It's almost half of your budget.
Right.
Since the youth salaries are covered, how would it affect your program to have, one less supervisor or one less team leader, or how would that directly impact your program?
Well, I do want to mention that if the staff cost isn't covered by CDBG, that means we would have to use other funding sources, which means we would have to serve less amount of kids. So ultimately, it all balances out, whether it's CDBG funds or other funding sources. I believe the way GYA is operated currently is pretty efficient. We have 6 programs, 450 kids, and 10 staff members to do it. One of them is just a fiscal, financial individual. And the program supervisor, like my position, I oversee all 6 of the programs. So it leaves, a handful of employees to take care of the grants and actually operating the programs, helping the kids, finding work site. There is a lot included in that job duty. So cutting one position would mean would impact it dramatically to the point where we would have to serve less kids because we don't have the staff to operate it.
Mr. Olivares?
If I can follow up on
Sure.
the line of questioning with a bit more direct question is, of your supervisors and your staff,
Yes.
in a similar position elsewhere, are they being paid top dollar? Are they at 80%? Are they...
To tell you the truth, I'm not sure where we compare with other cities. Not a lot of programs operate, or not a lot of youth employment programs operate the way we do. It's a very comprehensive program. There's other programs that do summer employment or one type of training program, but like a variety of programs as we do and all the components that we have, I haven't seen a youth employment program such as ours anywhere else.
Are your supervisors or your case managers 40 hours a week?
Yes.
Do they put in more hours than 40 hours a week?
Sometimes they do. Yes.
Are they paid overtime in that?
Well, they flex. If they work over the next day, they come in a little bit late or however.
Because technically they're city employees, right?
They are, yes.
So I just wanted to clarify one bit, and I'm sorry. I mean,
No problem.
again, this is not any. I don't want you to get an idea that this is not negative on your program in any way. I just need to clarify these budget matters.
Sure, no problem.
You
We're
know,
here to answer your questions.
So, if I understand correctly, if you are unable to make any funding deficit that results from us giving you less funding than what you've asked for, you would be cutting the number of youth employees rather than the number of employees that you have in terms of city employees.
We can't do any more than we do with the amount of staff we have. If we have less staff, that means the less number of kids we would have to serve. We're pretty maxed out at what staff is able to do with what we have right now.
And how many students have you served up until this point for this fiscal year?
Including last summer,
Including last summer. Yes.
starting July 1st.
Yes.
It's definitely over 400. I don't have the exact figure on hand.
Okay. That answers my question. Mr. Olivas? Oh, yes. We have some time, so can you please tell us a little bit about your experience?
The student, yeah.
My name is Aline Kemetlian. I started working with GYA in 2006. I actually heard about GYA in 2004, which when I was in 8th grade, they actually came to my school and they had an after-school assembly and they told the whole school about the program. I started in 2006 because I was too young. I was 13 and they started at 14. My first job was at the Glendale Healthcare Center. I worked there for a whole summer and I also did a year round there. After that, I started volunteering until the next summer came up. Next summer, which was 2007, I started working at the GYA office, and I've been working with them ever since. It's been a great experience. It's helped me a lot. I've improved a lot in my English, my clerical skills. We've done a lot of workshops, such as resumes, learning how to write resumes, how to do applications. We've also done a Rosie Goes to Wall Street camp, which is for girls, and that was part of our, we had to work and do that at we have like hours to work, and we did half of that at Rosie Camp and half of it we worked. And at Rosie Camp, what we did was basically build skills on banking, fitness, how to take care of ourselves, how to be in a working environment. So it's been a great experience. We've learned a lot. I'm sure many of the participants have learned a lot from this experience as well, and they keep coming back. So
Very good. Mr. Olivares.
This is what I like to see because, there's the confidence and even the marketing skills of pitching the program that we're going to see next. Really,
Yeah, I know. The upcoming programs. Really, Rosie Goes to Wall Street. Wonderful. And coming up is Rosie Goes to Wall Street. Yeah. No, that's very good. That's very good. Are bonuses included in the funding rate for really good workers? No?
No bonuses, sorry.
Okay.
No incentives.
You know what? Just be proud. I mean, you represent your program extremely well. So, any other questions or comments? Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Give you a moment to fill out your forms on both the program and the chair.
the chair is failing so far. I'm kidding.
You can replace me next year. Our next program is the Homeless Community Outreach and Assessment, sponsored by Path Achieve Glendale.
Good morning.
Good morning. You have up to 5 minutes.
All right.
And then roughly 2 minutes per committee member for questions.
Very good. I'll try and keep it brief. Good morning. I'm Natalie Kimura. I'm the Executive Director of Path Achieve Glendale, which has submitted an application for the Community Outreach and Assessment Program. This request differs from our prior year request in that we've increased the amount of funding that we're requesting, and we've increased the scope or expanded the scope of the request. The Community Outreach Program is a fundamental piece of our homeless delivery system here in Glendale. It is our face to the community when somebody has a homeless person in their neighborhood or in their doorway and they don't know who to call, they call us, and then we can come out and assist that person in finding services and the assistance that they need so they don't continue to be on the streets. This is a benefit to the community in that we obviously work to help the people who are on the streets, but we also prevent that person from being, let's say, prevent or minimize the amount of times that person gets called for the police department or other first responders from the city to assist that person. We are looking at a model of outreach for 2 people in the summer months and then adding a third outreach worker for the winter months. Their role is to do the engagement of folks who are on the street or help people who don't know where to go for services, and then connect them into our access center where we would do a more thorough assessment and then refer them to an appropriate service provider. And if we have room in our place, which is likely, we'll have emergency beds and transitional and permanent housing available to them. So the reason we expanded this is that outreach in and of itself is really not a viable way to provide homeless services. And if you look at the history of where programs have been, independent outreach programs generally don't work. The reason our outreach program is successful is it's connected to an access center and to an emergency housing program. So our staff already knows when they go out for the day, they know what beds we have available, they know what services we have available to folks that we can get them into. It isn't done on a hope and a prayer that some other agency might take them. The other rationale for this request is that we are very generously funded. 80% of our grant, our funding, is from the supportive housing program. The CDBG funding, therefore, leverages. For every $10 that we spend, $2 of CDBG gives us $8 of federal money. It's a very good arrangement. This particular request would be leveraging $168,000 in federal funds. I wanted to also thank the committee for their attention to the proposal and noting that our outreach in the summer months was very low. And as I mentioned in my response, that there are a couple factors related to that I think are important in terms of understanding how Glendale experiences homelessness. And that is that in the summer months, there tend to be lower levels of folks out in the community here. In the winter, we seem to attract people from other colder climates, and there seems to be more demand for services. There's also a greater level of urgency from people because the weather makes it less comfortable to be out on the streets. The other factor is that our staffing levels were diminished during the summer months, and we have since staffed up so we can accommodate more people into our program. The other part of this that I think is also very important is that increasingly we're looking at the value of extended contacts and the intensity of contacts to bring long-term people off the streets. So as much as we're seeing a high volume of people who are in need of help, a real critical piece is getting at the folks who you have seen year after year after year. And those people are the most difficult to serve. They are the most demanding in terms of the intensity for coordinating with other folks who provide services to that same person in working through a relationship so they will have the trust that they need to come in for services. We're looking at modeling our outreach moving forward after a project. There's a number of models, but one that's most current is the Project 50 approach that's being currently operated downtown in Skid Row, where they're having multidisciplinary teams of people focusing on very specific folks with very high health needs. We in Glendale have people with very acute health needs who continue to live on the street. They are placing great demands on the emergency housing system. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this clock was working. So I don't know my time.
No, don't worry about it. Keep going.
Okay. So because they have a lot of health needs, they're on they place a lot of demands on the emergency rooms in the community. They get a lot of calls from paramedics and from the police department. What we're looking at is identifying those specific people with their health needs and working on moving those specific people into permanent housing so that it's better health outcomes for them. It's less demand on community services for the city, and ultimately it's the right thing to do. So I hope that summary is enough, and I'm sorry if I went over the 5 minutes.
Don't worry.
Okay.
Questions? We'll start with Mr. Olivares.
I really don't have any questions, just a comment. I mean, we visited your place a number of times, and it's very clear to me, and I think to the committee, of the services that you provide, and I think this is one of those that today has direct impact on the streets. So I sympathize with the request only because I know the increase is there. So, thank you.
Mr. Cornell.
I'm familiar very much with your organization, having participated with the chairman at your day that you had for the homeless there at the Armory. I like your direction. I see you participate and get businesses involved like you did with the Pacific BMW, which is good. Another one I would highly recommend, who is very instrumental in helping the community, is a competitor of BMW, and that's the general manager, Mr. Johnny Harrison of Lexus. So if I look him up also. I just had one comment and one question. I was going for treatment at the Cancer Treatment Center there at Everett in Colorado Boulevard. And as I was walking into the door, there was a homeless woman, I would say in her 50s. I called a member of your staff, and I wasn't surprised but overwhelmed that when I got back from my treatment session about 20, 25 minutes later, the person was gone. A member of your staff came over and was accommodated, treated, very well respected. So you got a first-class operation there, and especially in a sensitive matter like this, involving a woman. So I can't say anything more positive than the professional handling that you made in this case, and the swift action, and seeing that someone like this is provided care. So I congratulate you for that. Being that the armory is down and you can't do anything there, I see we're using Burbank. Is Burbank contributing monetary-wise to the contribution here, other than the use of the facility, to help you with the funding?
This year, they're not. This year, we are getting funding through Imago, which is the contractor for the Armory. They get their funding through the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority. So that's where the funding for the third outreach worker is currently coming from. But we did last year receive $10,000 from the city of Burbank. I know that they've been investigating funding a case management position in the city, so they're slowly making some inroads on that matter.
When is the Armory going to be available after the remodeling and upgrade so you can come back here? I know you have shuttles and so on to take them to Burbank from the Armory here, but do you have a timetable, perhaps a preliminary one, when all the upgrades and remodeling will be done at the Armory?
Well, I don't have that information. I will say that the selection of the Armory hinges on a number of factors, not just the availability of the Glendale Armory. My understanding is the city of Burbank was actually welcoming the use of their Armory this season, which, with an open door like that and an opportunity to bring a city that has historically not been hosting the shelter was seen in a positive light, I think, by all parties involved. And we don't operate the winter shelter either at Pathachi Glendale. The contractor is Imago on behalf of the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority. So moving forward, I don't know where that would be, but the sense I have is the leadership in Burbank is really wanting to host it there, and that's the reason it's there this year. I just want to add also, our outreach team our new van was partially funded by Toyota of Glendale, and we get a support from CalStar Motors too, so it's not just specific BMW.
Well, I like your direction in getting the community involved, because it is a community problem. You just can't sweep away these people and brush them away because they just go somewhere else and the problem's still there and nothing's resolved. So I like your direction. Your work ethics in handling the situation, especially on the example that I provided you here. And continue the good work.
Thank you, Mr. Cornell. Mr. Bogdasarian.
I have no comments. Everything is wonderful.
Thank you.
Mr. Sinania.
I have a sort of a question / suggestion, perhaps. The first quarter we saw that only 8 people were served, and second quarter it's 185, so the difference is drastic. And if I understood you correctly, you said your staffing model is 2 people in the summer and 3 in the wintertime. Would it make more sense to maybe go 1 in the summer and 3 in the winter, or 1 in the summer and 4 in the winter, just because the numbers are so different?
Well, right, and let me just also state the 8 are new encounters. And so what was happening is our staff was still visiting the chronically homeless people that they have been seeing day after day, year after year. And so the way that report presents the information understates what work they are doing, and that's something that we try to make clear in the narrative, but when you're just looking at a number, it's dramatic. I thought about that as well. The reason the 2 is nice to have is that we can have a staggered schedule. They don't go out together. They go out, one's early morning, the other's late afternoon into the evening and on the weekends. And so that coverage is very nice to have. And I think the businesses in the community appreciate having somebody available on a Saturday, for example, when they need to have some outreach. We can certainly investigate that further, but I would caution against it. When you only have one person, if they get sick, then you don't have anybody. Sure. So, and then again, also our Access Center staff, we had 3 people leave all at once for a variety of reasons, but it was just a matter of timing. And so without the staff to take the people referred in, we were in a bind in terms of being able to help people as we did outreach to them.
Yes, Mr. Foley-Bowers.
I recall when we visited your site, I think one of your caseworkers was out, and you had one that had been there for like 24 hours. Or two shifts, or he stayed overnight?
Oh, well, I don't think it would be possible to do 24 hours, but there might have been somebody who worked a double shift.
Yeah.
Yes.
Happen a lot?
No. Happily, we have two people. Well, one is on call now, so we have the full-time permanent staff, and then we have an on-call person. So if we have somebody who is either sick or for whatever reason can't come in on a shift, we don't pull from the people who are on the permanent staff. We're able to pull from the on-call staff, and then so we can avoid that situation. That was definitely not our option.
Okay. Thank you.
I too have visited your program. I've also called your program when I've seen somebody out on the streets, and I've had a good experience with that. I do have a question. Just a couple days ago, I was walking along Brand and saw a gentleman sitting in front of the Borders bookstore, and I approached him regarding Path Achieve, and he said that he had gone there and that him and his wife had stayed there, but he said that he had some of his stuff stolen. Now, obviously, this is an isolated incident, but what he made it sound like was that it was stolen by maybe another person that was doing drugs or was on drugs. What is your policy? How do you handle when someone comes in to make sure that you don't have any of that going on in your shelter?
Every adult entering our emergency shelter program has to take a drug test. So if they're saying that there was an active drug user in the program, I would find that hard to believe because they have to test to come into the program. If anybody has a report of something being stolen, and every so often that's happened, there's an incident report, there's an investigation, and we work to resolve it. I don't know who you're talking about, so I can't say, and I don't know when they were there. I've heard complaints from people who used the program 5 years ago. And so since Path Achieve hasn't been there for 5 years, I can only say, well, it's new management and we're a different agency. But we do have procedures in place for incidents such as that, and nobody likes to have a theft going on. It makes people feel very insecure, and it would be, we're in a very communal environment there.
Right, and that's why I ask.
Yes, but we do have provisions for people to lock their things and have safe storage. So we haven't had, I think we had one incident since I've been there, and it was, client to client, and we got it sorted out, but I don't recall it involving a married couple.
Very good. Again, it's a great program, and just visiting the program and seeing what you guys are doing is very inspirational, so I thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take a moment to fill out those forms. Our next program is Rosie Goes to Wall Street. Wow, that sounds very familiar.
I don't think we should listen to this now.
Yeah.
Wall Street, huh?
The sponsor is the City of Glendale Commission on the Status of Women. I would like to say you've already had somebody go up to bat for you. A glowing recommendation, but I would like to remind you have up to 5 minutes to present and roughly 2 minutes for questions per committee member. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Chair Emery and members of the committee. The way we're going to be using our 5 minutes today is I'm just going to make a couple comments very quickly. And since none of you have been on a visit to our Camp Rosie, we brought you a virtual visit by magic of media. So we've got a little movie, just about 4 minutes long, so you can see the girls and hear their testimony as well. You heard Aline. I couldn't ask for a better testimony there. So what I'll do is just very quickly just make a quick point about our program. One of the things that I heard earlier today in the meeting was that there was an emphasis on service delivery, and rightly so. We are in times of incredibly economic stress on families, and people are losing their jobs left and right. One of the main precepts the Commission has worked by for the past 5 years is that prevention is the way to help eliminate the need on the back end for services. So while the old saying, pull out an old proverb, if we give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day, but if we teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. And what we want to do is interrupt those cycles of poverty and give girls tools so that they can be successful for the long run. So Camp Rosie, as you know, is a collaborative program, and we seek to give tools to the girls that will help them in 5 major areas of their life. First and foremost is a foundation in financial literacy. We teach them basic banking skills from budgeting all the way through to investing. We talk about different kinds of investments for themselves as well as entrepreneurship so they can be creative with their money making. We do talk about relationship that on 3 different levels. That is relationship with yourself, so self-awareness. Also healthy relationships with in terms of dating or future marriage, and then also teen dating safety, so that they can recognize the hallmarks of unhealthy or abusive relationships. We want to stop that from happening. We also talk about health, so there's a strong component for fitness and nutrition. We give also two sessions of self-defense training every time. We find that hopefully the girls never have to use it, but it also provides an empowerment for them to feel physically strong. And then finally, we really put a strong emphasis on women's leadership. So we want to teach them about philanthropy and service to the community, political participation, and we empower the girls to do peer mentoring as well. So with that said, I'd like to go ahead and hit it, Maestro.
To me, the Rosie Goes to Wall Street program is so important because it gives girls tools to use in their future.
It helps them to have a well-rounded kind of sense of themselves. It's not only about the educational part of it, but the interaction with the other students, with the different presenters.
In a camp of 30 girls with the absence of boys, they are able to really focus on themselves and on one another, so that to me is extremely valuable. When you're new to this country, and some of our girls have been here 6 months, and the city of Glendale embraces you and gives you a program where you can learn about money, nutrition, how to get a job, how to protect yourself, how to say no to someone who wants to violate you. That is a huge welcome.
The most important thing that I took away from the Rosie program was the confidence to communicate to others.
The most important thing I took away from the program was that I've gained a lot of friendships, and I've learned a lot about myself as a person.
I loved everything about the Rosie Goes to Camp. It was a wonderful experience. I loved the self-defense. The people were wonderful. I met a lot of new different people. I had a fun time.
This was one of the most amazing experiences, and I have my fingers crossed that we can really do this again for these girls, because it was just amazing. Not only for them, not only did they learn, but I learned the importance of collaboration. I learned the importance of working together as a community to really make impact, true impact, and make a difference in people's lives.
Participating in Rosie's camp is amazing to me, because I think it's critical that they learn as they start dating.
The thing that I would share with others, future girls, is to really listen to it. The people have to tell you, because it's very important.
Because they received all that, they're able to give back, and they want to give back.
I've learned that I could be a role model to other girls that were younger than me, because I was one of the more older girls in the group. So I've kind of touched on a lot of the girls, and they've become one of my small sisters or friends, as you can say.
I really enjoyed the Rosie Camp program, and I wish I could do it again. And I really loved learning with all the adults who were really helpful, and hopefully they come and do it every year until I become an adult. Maybe I can sponsor them and have fun.
I think all around it's a good, complete empowerment program for the girls, and I think it worked really well.
One person or a group of people can have a vision, but it really takes so many different people to come together and join that vision and to make that happen. And that's really what happened with Rosie Goes to Wall Street.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Questions? We'll start off with Mr. Bagdasarian.
Very, very nice program, very comprehensive. Just looking at the 5 areas that you cover. It's the age 11 to 18, such a wide range of ages, is that works out the program that they all can take benefits.
What we do is we approach the girls developmentally. So initially we started out with only high school girls between the ages of 14 and 18. We realized, though, to really make a longer lasting impact, that we needed to address the girls at a younger age. So we have a special component for the middle school girls that we instituted last year. This year, because we're doing only 2 sessions of the camp, we would like to hire someone with a specialty in middle school girls.
Now, I see you've been doing this for 3 years. You've had the program for 3 years, and this is the first year you're applying. How have you managed in the past? And also, if you get some of the funding, would you still be able to produce the results that you're...
Absolutely. We have applied for grants, and we've been supported by the Women's Foundation of California. Seroptimus International of Glendale has come through not only once but twice for funding for this camp. And then also Kiwanis has given us grants as well. So all of the programs of the Commission are we also do fundraising on our own. We've got a big Jewels of Glendale event coming up on March 26th. Quick plug for that. So we do lots of different funding activities in order to do that. And like what we teach the girls, we try to build up a reserve so that we can fund the program in the case of some sort of contingencies where we don't get all the funding that we've planned for.
I read in your outreach that you work with the Glendale High School. Do you have plans to go to other high schools if this...
We work primarily with Glendale High School, but we've also worked very closely with Hoover, and we have spread out. We've got girls from every part of the city that come. But we work very closely with GYA, too, so we work hand-in-hand, actually, with GYA.
Thank you, Mr. Bagdasarian. Mr. Cornell.
Yes, I just want to commend you for taking the plunge and putting in your RFP with the committee here. I like your program. I just see maybe some slight duplication with GWA. I know you work with them. You have a team effort with them. But I see some duplication here from what your objective is to what GWA is doing.
Thank you for that, committee member. I could see where you could see that, and there certainly is a reinforcement of what some of the principles that they learn in GYA. Camp Rosie, though, is a little bit more comprehensive in the skills that we provide the girls, so that we do touch on some of the same things as a basis for financial literacy, but we also add to that the relationship, the self-awareness work. We also talk the health and fitness and the self-defense training are components that are not covered through GYA. So we do work to reinforce those really important basic principles that they get initially with GYA, and then we expand upon them with other skills that they need in other areas of their life. So can I just take a moment to introduce 2 of my board members who are here?
Of course.
Okay,
Yes.
Okay. Paula Devine and Elizabeth Manasarian, both of whom have served on the Commission on the Status of Women for some time. Paula is our acting chair, and Elizabeth Manasarian is one of our commissioners. So they just wanted to come and show their support for the program.
Welcome.
Your title, Rosie Goes to Wall Street. I'm not here to say anything different about it, but Wall Street is not the place to go now.
Not anymore, that's
Right.
for sure.
At least right now.
You're right about that.
At least right now here. So, the commission here that you have, the Glendale Commission on the Status of Women, so you're part of this then, or?
I'm the staff member to the commission.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
Okay. Because I know the council elevated that, a few years ago into a commission?
Actually, tonight is our 5-year anniversary.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's been 5 years already.
Okay. That pretty much my question here. Continue the good work, and welcome. Glad to have you aboard.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Olivares.
Thank you. I think this is the first one. We get a commission coming to another commission for money.
It could be.
So, but you're welcome. I think it's a really good program. I like the fact that you're focusing, obviously, on young girls that do need. I think there are a lot of young girls that need this program. And so, I do see duplication with GYA. However, you do have a different approach to the problem, because it is a problem. And so, no, I welcome that. I think it's a great idea.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Olivares. Mr. Sinanian.
Same sentiment. I think it's a wonderful program. I like the fact that it's concentrating on girls. I have a daughter myself, so I definitely understand. And also, I think it's the GYA and your program supplement each other more so than duplicate. But that's just my opinion, of course. So keep up the good work.
Thank you so much.
Very good, thank you. And I'm going to echo my colleagues' sentiments. I also noticed that this was a commission coming to another commission for money. So does the city of Glendale have a, commission, finance
Status of
commission? Status of Yeah. I don't think that would fly. I do have a couple of questions regarding just budgetary matters. How many total hours would a prospective participant be spending in the program?
For our GY girls, the amount of hours they have to work in the summertime are capped. So we did a special, actually 3 weeks, 6 hours a day for them, between 5.5 and 6 hours a day. So it comes to about half of full time for them, so about 20 hours a week, so roughly 60 hours. And then for the girls who are able to participate without the cap, we actually do it as a 3-week full time intensive summer camp. So that's actually 120 hours because it's 40 hours a week.
Okay, full time, you mean they come in the morning, they leave in the afternoon?
Like 9 to 5, right, or 10 to 6.
Okay, and then here in you do 2 of these programs each summer?
We do.
Okay. And so you've already done your 08-09.
We did.
How did that go?
It went really well, though. We ran into some challenges, but in terms of enrollments, because we were sort of fighting the mandatory summer school requirement for some of the students that we were working with. But we've accommodated for that this coming summer. And so overall, over the course of the 2 years that we've been running, we've served over 100 girls in Glendale.
Now, if we are unable to give you your full funding request, would that create any problems in terms of the administration of the funds, given, the strict requirements of HUD?
I don't believe that it would. I mean, I think one of the things that's the benefit of working here at the city is I've got lots of resources to draw on for help. And certainly, the same ones that other community members would have as well, but with the sort of benefit of having the institutional knowledge and ability that I can draw on. Additionally, what we would do is we'd find other ways sort of to manage the funds so that what needs to be paid would be paid without compromising the integrity of the program. And the administration is what I do, so it would be fine.
Mr. Olivares?
Thank you. One follow-up question, because you are located in Glendale High School primarily, at least at this point.
Actually, we're not located in Glendale. We have held camps at Pacific and also at Glendale Community College.
Okay, so do you foresee a problem in serving primarily clients from the census, from the tract in Southern Glendale?
No, this coming year we're going to be held again in Pacific Edison Community Center, so it's very central to the tracts that we look to serve.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. I have no further questions. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much for your time. Can my chair Divine make a comment very quickly?
I
think we should take a vote on that.
Yeah, no, please.
Chair Omrian, committee. I just want to say that being a retired educator for I was a teacher for 32 and a half years, and watching this program grow and impact these young girls is really quite amazing. You saw today, and a picture's worth 1,000 words, and you saw Eileen today, and she's a product of our Rosie. We are also very fortunate right now to have one of our ex officios on the commission, a graduate of Rosie, and she's vibrant and outspoken, and you can just see that she oozes self-empowerment. It's fabulous to see the change that the girls go through, and I thank you for listening to our presentation, and I hope that you will support us. Thank you so much, all of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay. That ends our morning portion of interviews. Public comment. Do we have any cards? Okay. We are going to take a recess for lunch. We will be back promptly at 15 minutes past 1.